Do you see this little clip I saw making the rounds on Twitter? It's really grim.
We didn't just want to build, let's say, a company that makes the current crop of creators 10% faster or makes it 10% easier to make music. If you want to impact the way 1 billion people experience music, you have to build something for 1 billion people. And so that is first and foremost giving everybody the joys of creating music. And this is a huge departure from how it is now. It's not really enjoyable to make music now. People enjoy.
Why did you say that?
It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. You need to get really good at an instrument or really good at a piece of production.
You know what I said about how AI appeals most to people who are really bad at being people? Like joyless automaton people who genuinely like just sleepwalk through life and don't get much out of it.
Software. I think the majority of people don't enjoy the majority of the time they spend making music.
Do you not think that's like running? It is hard to run. It is painful to run. You don't particularly enjoy it, but you love running. And you get good at it, and you get better at it, and you speak to the runners, and they love running.
Most people drop out of that pursuit because it was hard. And so I think that the people that you know that run, this is a highly biased selection of the population that fell in love with it.
I'm jumping back and forth.
It's like pre-designed to cater to failures. You know what I mean? Like all the memes, like we'll pick up a pencil. It's pretty apropos because to a large extent, like people's desire to use these tools stems from like a fundamental inability or unwillingness to improve themselves. I had someone tell me unironically that AI democratizes art. That's one of their big like cope slogans. The idea that like if we take this like process of communication, expression, and self-fulfillment, and then you turn it into homogenized slop that anyone can do with no creative input because you're just like inputting prompts, that makes it like democratized. But they don't actually believe it. And in fact, many of the people who push that don't believe in democracy. I'll tell you this much, folks. The people who say that AI democratizes art did not vote for Kamala Harris in the last election, okay? These are not people that value democracy as like a first principle, all right? They're using that as a buzzword. Fascists love AI art. Prime Minister Starmer plans to make Britain AI superpower? Yeah, that sounds about right. Every country is saying this? Well, yeah, of course, because right now AI is the big, like, venture capitalist hype generator, you know? Like, AI is, in a world where technological advancements aren't making people's lives better anymore, for the most part, outside of some, like, slim stuff and, I don't know, disability accessibility or medicine. For the most part, technological developments are just being made like on the margins to impress investors. And this is like the new thing, you know? So yeah, every country whose leaders are subservient to capital is going to be touting this. Britain will be one of the great AI superpowers, he said on Monday at University College London. University College London. Bit redundant, innit? Apple pulling back on Apple Intelligence, by the way, nobody likes it. Well, that's crazy, man. The hype machine that venture capitalists are obsessed with makes contact with the public, and it turns out no one likes it. Yeah, like it's entirely like in a bubble. It's Juicero shit, you know. Like the only reason AI is being crammed into everything is so it can be pushed as part of a sales package to generate that investor hype. But as soon as you actually like integrate it into a product, people don't like. I guess a lot of people use ChatGPT for their, I don't know, grocery lists or whatever. Also, what is a lot of people? My understanding is that out in the general population, casual use of LLMs is pretty common. Not necessarily AI image generation, but like using ChatGPT to ask questions or search stuff. My understanding is that it's quite common. I don't know if there are any like formal studies on that. I'm kind of surprised there aren't, really, you know? Like asking people in different age ranges, like, how many times have you used ChatGPT or an equivalent software within the past week or something? I don't know. New article on Neil Gaiman abuse allegations. It really is, it's crazy out there, huh? Wish you could turn it off on Google. Yeah, they're not going to let you do that. Crazy how the Sandman was made by Hatsune Miku. Our whole economy is betting apps and LLMs. True. America is actually about to have the highest class mobility in the world because the only way to gain or lose wealth will be through DraftKings or crypto investments. So you can be a millionaire overnight or you can lose everything overnight. It's that we're actually about to like live out the meritocratic dream. We're on the precipice. We're right on the cusp of greatness, okay? We're like the fat guy with the mustache in the mining pit digging underground, and he doesn't realize that he's a foot away from breaking through the sheetrock and hitting diamonds. Have you seen the insane spike in steak advertisements on Twitter recently? They're everywhere. Well, yeah, again, like, legitimately, the entire economy is grift. Like, basically none of the economy anymore has anything to do with, like, meeting people's basic needs. We figured that out a while ago. We have enough food, even if we don't get it to where it needs to go. We have enough food, like, raw material-wise, you know? We have enough food. We have the, like, raw materials. We have the basics. We could use them even more efficiently with stuff like, you know, solar energy or better allocation of our you know, our like petroleum resources, so that we weren't using so much stuff like that to power the grid. But like, we're not going to do that because that would make less money for certain people. We're not, nothing has anything to do with like meeting people's needs anymore. So now the only way to make like a big money is through graft. So that's pretty much all it is. You know, 150 years ago, you could become a robber baron by actually serving people's needs. Henry Ford, as evil as he was, he made cars. Or well, he ran the company that made cars. But the cars were like an actual jump in human technological progress. You can't deny that. Whatever effect they might have had on the landscape here in North America, you can't deny the fact, like, mother made cars. Like, that was a thing changed, you know? You can, like, the railroads, or hell, even like in the early days of the oil industry, like, changes were made. You can make like these distinct markers on the like scope of human progress. And it's like, okay, a lot of evil will be done because of this development, but it is a development. Nothing that's happening right now is a development, you know? None of it. It's all empty. I feel like there's a lot more technological progress that could be made. Yeah, but for the most part, where we've stagnated is social progress. Over the past 150 years, very few changes have been made to the basic institutions on a social level to allow them to keep up. Like, our hospitals and our schools contain within them far more knowledge now than they did 100 years ago, but institutionally they function basically identically. Like, there's been essentially no change. We have like, I think we've kind of reached the technological limit that we can within the current social paradigm. Because in order for us to like move past where we are right now in this historical moment, you have to move beyond like the profit motive. Or not necessarily even move beyond the profit motive. Look, I'm not even going to take the hardline communist stance to this, okay? I'm going to say, like, we have so leaned into the profit motive that we have reached the point of absurdity to a degree that I think kind of like maxes out the material kind of predictions you can make via, I don't know, Marxist writings or whatever. We're kind of reaching a breaking point. And this is what people mean when they say late stage capitalism. They don't just mean like people will be poor. They mean like the material forces have now turned in on themselves, and now economic development is like literally over the past decade, the wealth of the top wealthiest people in the world has gone from like a few billion to hundreds of billions. And every new development is just venture capitalist hype cycles that have nothing to do with meeting human need. The top of the economy is just like an it's like a spin cycle. It's a, you know, who wants to be a millionaire wheel that's being spun all the time, where every time the roll is made, a bit of that gets siphoned off the top and sent off to the islands to never be seen by the taxpayer again, and the rest of it just gets like divvied up amidst like an increasingly small pool of oligarchs. Like, it's not just getting bleak, it's like absurd. It's like a joke. The economy has nothing to do with meeting human need anymore. So that's literally the definition of cyberpunk. Yeah, well, but I think that like cyberpunk often drops this for the rule of cool, because what you got to understand is that like you're not getting tech implants. Human lives are cheap, man. Like, you drop it for the rule of cool, right? Like, oh, in cyberpunk societies, you'll have cool glistening neon signs and like futuristic cars, and people will have cyberpunk implants and stuff. And it's like, well, no, none of that conforms to like the direction we're going in. The siphoning of wealth from the bottom means that no, like 100 years from now, the slums will look basically the same as the slums do today. Like, slum technology peaked back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, when we basically decided what the projects are going to look like. And from that point forward, like nothing changes anymore. Things aren't even changing for the wealthy, dude. What the f do wealthy people get excited about in their day-to-day life? Heated floors? Heated driveways so they don't have to get their servants to shovel snow? I don't even, like, what developments do they get excited about? What change? What do they strive towards apart from like dominion over others? Children? Yeah, probably. There's also no warring between companies. True. That's the biggest cope of the cyberpunk setting. The idea that companies would fight each other. Why? Why on earth would they do that? When they can just buy out the government and then like increasingly consolidate until you get paydays for all the wealthiest men on earth, you know? Why would they ever waste resources fighting? The corpo wars aren't happening, man. They're just going to keep merging. I just don't think people are prepared for the understanding that the future, at least with regard to the corporate dystopia, is going to be very boring. Like it's not enough that it be evil. It's like it's going to be boring too. And that's maybe the saddest thing from a narrative perspective, at least. Unironically, the war between Militech and Arasaka is so strange. Not only would it not happen, it's insane that the way the narrative is posed, it makes it seem like Militech is the good guys. Not to mention that, like, in Night City, the cops are like the weakest, most underpowered force, you know? But that's not how it's turning out at all. Like, the police are always being beleaguered by the local gangs and by the corpos or whatever. Dude, you are inventing divisions between groups that in reality are one and the same. The gangs work with the cops, and the cops are the corpo. Like there's no like, but again, that's boring, because if you took the mind of V and you entered that world or whatever, there wouldn't be any cool warring factions or whatever. There would actually just be a single, like, borderline omnipotent, omnipresent surveillance state Leviathan that would just chew you up and spit you out with no hope of fighting back. You know, it would be 1984 shit. It would be like, no, there's not actually any meaningful conflict. There's just like one overwhelming force that you can do nothing against. It's because there's private police in that game, no? Yeah, but like in real life today, private police and regular police get along because the private police are employed by the wealthy and the police already defer to the interests of the wealthy. The private police are basically just the mercenary wing. Like, it's literally like, look at what happens every time there's like big union strike breaking. Look what happened recently with like Amazon, you know? Regular public police officers with badges go in and do the job of corporation. They're doing Pinkerton shit. And yeah, and private police are usually just off-duty cops anyway. Do you think we'll have a revolution? Yes. Vote for AOC 2028.